everyone. Can everybody hear this okay? I'm told the fan might mess with the audio and my mic. Sound good? Okay, good. My name is Brendan Vaughan. I'm editor-in-chief of Fast Company. Thanks for being here at the Fast Company Grill today, or for the next half hour or so. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Very, very excited to be having this conversation with the cast of The Ballad of Wallis Island, which is a film. Yep. It deserves your applause. I actually saw it. I loved this movie. I'm just going to tip my hand right there at the top about it. I thought it was amazing. It tells the story of Charles, who is an eccentric millionaire, someone who has come into some money and decides to spend a big chunk of this money putting together his favorite musical act, which is a couple played by Carey Mulligan and Tom Basden here to my left, bringing them back together to play a private concert for him on his remote island. And so lots happens from that. It's an amazing premise. It would be almost a creepy premise if it wasn't for how brilliantly Tim plays his role. So just to introduce Tom Basden here to my left, he plays Herb McGuire. Tom actually crafted the original music for the film too. So Timothy Chalamet learned to play and sing like Bob Dylan. You actually wrote an entire back catalog, which is kind of extraordinary. So God bless you for that. Tim Key plays Charles. James Griffith, goes by Griff, he just told me, is the director of the film. And of course, Carey Mulligan plays Nell Mortimer. She is at the end. So this film is about a lot of things. It's about lost love, love of the past itself. It's about music, it's about friendship, moving on, and it's really about grief as well. But this movie feels very different than you might think based on that description. I'm not going to spoil why that is, but like I said, I love this film. It also has a fascinating backstory. We're going to get into the movie, of course, but we're also going to get into some of the business around a film of this size and scope in 2025, and I'd love to talk to our panelists about that. We're not going to talk about AI. The only thing AI in this film, as far as I can tell, might have been that halibut. That looked a little, but no, this is a film that has nothing to do with that, and it's going to be a nice break from all of us hearing a lot about that here at South by Southwest. So, Tim, Tom, whichever one of you wants to take it, please tell us how this film came to be, because it is not the typical story.
So we actually made a short film in 2007, I think, which was the genesis of this. We're directed by James, by Griff, and that ended up being sort of about 25 minutes. It was quite a short script, but we played around with it. It was all very loose, and we just loved the characters and loved making it. And that then was nominated for a BAFTA back then, the following year. And we then stupidly tried to make a film set in China for a while, and then the people we were working with after a few years said, that's just not going to happen. You can't make a film in China. So we sort of ditched that, and then did separate things, other work, other avenues, and then kind of came back to this script that we.
Sorry, when was the short film? What
2007. Okay, I think. Very long time ago, and then we kind of I think during COVID, you had COVID here, I assume. We had it as well in London, and during that all of our work stopped, and I think both of us just kind of went back to some of the things we felt like were unfinished business, and the main one was this film and developing the short into a feature, and then we just set about writing that and keeping it quite small and achievable. And then we got the script together quite quickly, and then by, I guess, total fluke really, Tim sent it to Carey, and she said that she'd love to be part of it as well. And then we got to make it, and we couldn't be happier with how it came about and what we've ended up with. But obviously, it's a very, very long gestation and very sort of quick delivery. It's quite an unusual backstory for a feature, I think.
The film comes out March 28th, by the way, if I didn't say that already. So I sort of alluded to this a little bit at the beginning. I wanted to ask Carey a question to you here. One character says to another, I'm not going to say who, you're not in love with me, you're in love with the past. So this is a major theme of the film. Carey, how did you think about that theme as you approached, as you thought about how you were going to do your character?
I don't know if I did do much thinking. I was.
That's an incredibly honest answer, and I appreciate it.
I had a very small baby. So when Tim asked me to do the film, I was pregnant, and I said, well, I'll have like a 3-month-old baby, but I'd love to do it.
You weren't thinking properly, I imagine,
wasn't
at the time.
thinking
Yeah.
really.
She was vulnerable and I pounced.
So I didn't think a huge amount, which I think is a testament to how good the writing is, that I did almost no preparation for the film, but that it felt
Doesn't
so
show.
easy to do, and I think that is genuinely a credit to the writing, that I think you have to work much harder as an actor when the writing isn't good, and the script was so brilliant. So I just sort of said it.
So, Tim, speaking of the writing, tell us a little bit more about how you adapted the actual material from that short to the
Right,
feature
so
length.
the short film we made 17 years ago, and we were living together, so we just sort of did it throughout the day, just had an idea, carved it up into half, wrote half each, stuck it together, and that was fine. We were quite young, and then sort of Griff sorted it out when he directed it. With this one, obviously, it's like a bigger situation. It took us 17 years to work out what the plot should be of the feature. But then we did do it sort of similarly. We kind of worked it all out together, cut it in half, cut it in quarters, and then wrote it together. But to be fair, he writes a bit quicker than me, so I would say he wrote more of the film than I did. And then, obviously, the main development was that we got Carey. Carey agreed to do it, so we had this new character, which kind of meant we could elevate. The short film is like a kind of short little fairy tale, really, that just lasts. It's just between us two, and then the actual feature has all of those themes fleshed out, but plus this extra dimension, fortunately played by Carey Mulligan.
Yeah, so there was no Carey character at all in the first one. There was no.
In the first one, it's just I live on an island. I invite this guy to the island. We don't really get on, and then this kind of sometimes happens in films. We start to get on, and then it ends. And then in the feature, we sort of built on that because that felt like quite a winning formula. So in the feature, he arrives. We don't get on. He has a fantastic actress with him, character really, but it works on both levels. And there's 2 other people in it as well who are also fantastic. So basically everything in the first film developed and then added more dimensions and colour to it, and that sort of gets to the feature.
What you were saying with Carey's character talking about the past and being in love with the past, by opening it up, it meant that we could bring in backstory for all the characters, because in the short, it was basically 2 strangers meeting and trying to figure each other out, and kind of like see if there was a way that they could have any kind of friendship, I suppose. And by bringing in someone from Herb's past and also talking about Charles's past, it kind of allowed us to make the film much bigger and much sort of emotionally, much richer, I think. So that was a kind of like a big change and quite a big sort of step in how the film came across, and stopped it from being otherwise probably a bit sketchy, which I think the short film was a bit sketchy. It was one idea done pretty well.
Really well,
but
really well.
We didn't really develop it beyond that until we came to then write the feature.
Griff, let's get you in here. I have to comment before this question, however, that don't you guys know that you're supposed to talk in very sort of overwrought, extremely dramatic fashion about your work and all of the art? I mean, this is the difference between interviewing
It doesn't feel like that environment.
and an American cast for a film. So I'm a little bit off balance here. So I do actually want to talk to you, Griff, a little bit about sort of your vision for the film. You're coming to this also now. We all know sort of this unusual backstory. How did that affect the way that you came at it as the director and what your goals were?
Well, I mean, I knew the guys from old, just on the comedy circuit, really, and we'd done a couple of sketch things together, and obviously the film, so you know about that bit of the story. But yeah, I mean, the approach is what I guess is just, as a director, I'm trying to set them up for success. Just watching them do their thing is a real privilege. Watching all the actors come together, and I see my job as a kind of helping guide them through it. It was such a wonderful roadmap. The script was so clear about what it intended to be. So, my job's fairly simple in a way. Just make sure everyone turns up on time.
And puts in great performances, which they do. So a word that has been used already, I'm sure will get used a lot more to describe this film, is heartwarming. And I'm curious, how does that word sit with you all?
Pretty well.
You like that word?
I love it.
Good.
Yeah, say it
All right.
again.
All right, heartwarming.
I think
Absolutely heartwarming.
This is the film that the world needs right now. Yeah.
Now we're talking.
No, someone did say
Thank
that.
you, Tim.
No, but it is like, there's a lot of chaos happening in the world. And our film, I don't know whether it's like a sort of cynical, heartwarming land grab, but certainly as it was sort of coming together and then as we were making it, you sort of think, well, maybe it does have something, to something about it which is quite warm. But then we didn't see it for ages. We saw it for the first time last month. And yeah, I think it was kind of, for me anyway, seeing it for the first time all stuck together, it was sort of quite overwhelming that I was quite touched by it. It is quite a warm film, and I think it fully merits the word heartwarming.
Yeah, and also I think just the group, this group here, is quite an intimate, small group, and I think everyone comes with a lot of heart and feeling. I think everyone's approach is actually very similar, and their processes are obviously different, but there is this kind of, it starts in that warmer place, and it's something that you kind of, sometimes you're worried about as an artist that would be seen as some kind of slight, if it's not edgy, but I'm really, really proud of it, and what
it does, it ebbs and flows. It's not just constantly, you're not just chuckling throughout the whole thing.
It's not non-stop saccharine. It's only
no,
in places.
It's not. There's moments of non-saccharine. But yeah, I suppose its sort of trajectory near the end, it does leave you, leaving the movie theatre with a warm feeling, I guess.
Absolutely, and the humor definitely cuts that. I mean, it's like you said, it's a mix of tones and registers, and very fun to watch. This is Fast Company is a business publication. This is a business audience. Let's talk about the business of this film and just the business of films like this in general. I know that a few of you have executive producer titles. Not sure how involved in the finances we necessarily are, but would love to get into that as much as we can. So what is the business model for a film like this? What has to happen for this to be considered a financial success? And I'm not asking for exact numbers, not expecting to give those, but how much theater, how much streaming, how much is too much to spend on promotion? How do we help this audience understand sort of the economics of a project like this?
Well, personally, I don't know.
I think they might be able to help me understand it, to be honest.
Griff might have a stab at it.
Well, I think we're just in really good hands, actually, with Focus Features. They've and our partners in the UK, Baby Cow and Bankside, who sold the film originally to Focus. They were very clear earlier on that it was going to be tight budget, and we made this film in 18 days. It was incredibly fast-paced, and like all these experiences, kind of hard on the day, but a very pleasurable experience. So we made sure that we were very tight on budget, so that the margins on the other side could be good for them, I guess. But our intention is just to make a great film, and obviously we're in good hands with Focus, who have been through this before and know how to make that work for them. So it's been a lot of learning for us working with them.
I think the other thing that was really that had a big impact is that as writers of the script, we were able to talk to production quite a lot about what we could and couldn't afford, and it's really useful because often those conversations don't really happen, and you kind of end up with production sort of doing something that they probably can't budget properly, and then you look at it and go, well, that's not really what I intended, and actually being quite straightforward about what the budget does and doesn't allow for is very helpful. Even things like we lost about 3 or 4 scenes from the script a couple of days before shooting because we just we haven't got we haven't got enough time to shoot this many scenes in this schedule we've got. And so we just, either cut them completely or moved some of the dialogue we like best or plot points elsewhere. And, you do have to be a bit flexible when the budget is as small as it was for our film. But I actually think, if you're all working together creatively, you can do it in quite a painless way. And often it might even make the film better because you're forcing yourself to be quite hard on the script and look at it and go, do we definitely need these set pieces? Do we definitely need this many setups, this many scenes?
Yeah, you have to be creative with all those choices, don't you? And that's where a lot of the fun is, in the parameters or the edges of what you can afford, what you want to do, your ambition for the film. And we always our ambition was always high for the film, to make the best thing we could with the resources we had. But you never want an audience to sit there and go, oh, they did this well, for the money, because you don't want them to think about it. You can watch it like that critically and say, oh, I wish we'd had more time, or I wish we'd had more resources, but ultimately you're judged, as it should be, by the product that you create. And so that's the thing. That's the only thing you can control, is how good it is.
What was the budget? I don't know what the budget was. Felt like millions.
Yeah.
We normally don't have audience Q&A to avoid these impertinent questions, so I apologize on behalf of our rowdy.
How much
crowd
you
here.
earn? Is that?
So, for example, going back to cutting your cloth accordingly, the film's supposed to start with Tom arriving on the island, and in the script he arrives on a jetty.
The ABBA boat doing the full...
that was not the plan.
No,
so the plan was he arrives to a jetty, and then I meet him on the jetty, and there's some chaos and stuff. But really, it's the first meeting wasn't supposed to be what it ended up as, because we didn't have enough money for a jetty. So then we're trying to work our way around how to solve that problem. And I remember there's loads of discussions with production, trying to work out whether we can get a weird sort of duck boat. Then there's maybe we can go to Tenby, which is down the road, another place, use their jetty. Then there was talk about building a jetty. And meanwhile, to be fair to Tom, he's trying to solve it. If it comes to it, we haven't got a jetty. And then he phones me up and explains how the opening will be. And it's not quite as glamorous as the jetty. But once we've managed to do it and execute it, and Griff make it work, it's I wouldn't really change the start for anything. It's kind of really clumsy and really scruffy, and it just means that his character is immediately in a world that's not that shouldn't be for him, because he's a music star, and now he's in the ocean, and that's how it started. But it kind of came around a lot because of budget, amazingly.
That's actually that's an amazing way to talk about that. I don't think this is spoiling. It's the first 5 minutes of the movie, right? So they show up and Tom falls in the water, and I can't imagine.
It's a bit more elaborate than that.
Yes, I'm editing.
Imagine it being funny, and you.
They're gonna have to.
Yes, but it is a perfect way to establish the relationship between those two characters. So necessity breeds invention, or whatever that expression is. So. Let me ask one more financial question, and it's a very direct one that I think, if you guys will be willing to answer it, would shed a light on how these kinds of things happen. Does this film happen without Carey?
Great question.
That's a great question. Look,
I would have walked away.
We had versions of the film. We early on, a number of years ago, when we were trying to we knew we wanted to make the movie. And we went to a couple of producers, and we have to talk about the figures we think we can make the movie for. So we budgeted a movie, and it came at a very small figure. We tried to make it as small as possible, and then but we always focused on the creative first. But we knew that we had to be very clever about how we financed it, and we were like, well, we can make this movie. And then we started talking about cast, and as we went out to... Well, we didn't go out to anyone. Basically, Tim said, I know Carey Mulligan.
I didn't really. I'd never met her.
And then...
I felt like I knew her.
We should send it to her. So then...
Of Carey Mulligan, yes.
We were all like, well, yeah, of course you do, Tim. Very, very funny. And then when Carey came on board, yes, the things started to move quickly. I think I don't want to embarrass Carey about it, because she's such an integral part in this film. But obviously, once Carey comes in, there was more finances available to us. Yeah, and look, that's the nature of the business, isn't it? It's about it's about getting an audience to see the film, and but that wasn't our intention. Our intention was finding the right person. So we were hoping to make this film with Carey for £400,000, and that was the way we went into it. And then I think that's the best way, because then everything else became that was the intention creatively. and then everything else led on business-wise from there. And we didn't really have to worry about it.
But that's what we were doing. Like,
Yes, we were,
Focus
yeah.
weren't involved yet, so that's what we were doing, and then we weren't.
Yeah.
Let's stay with you, Carey. Let's talk about the music piece of this, because I would love to just hear. I've always been I'm impressed with actors, no matter what their performance is amazing, but especially when singing and playing an instrument and all that start to get involved, just incredible to be able to learn that and do it well enough for a movie. Did you have much experience with roles that involved music in the past? Was this new? Like, how did you approach that?
I'm sort of a choir level singer, but not a professional choir, like a school choir singer. But I sang in a Shame, and I sang in the Inside Llewyn Davis Coen Brothers movie. But always sort of, Shame, it was like but Inside Llewyn Davis was a backing I was in a little trio thing there. So I'd done it a bit in films enough to sort of think that I could probably get away with it. But with the caveat that I said to Tom, I don't want to sing ever on my own. And we did shoot a scene that didn't end up in the film where I sing on my own. And it's the closest I've been to tears filming anything. After every take, I was like, Tom, I hate it. Please don't make me. Griff, please don't make me do it again. I hate it so much.
She was brilliant in it, by the way. She moved everyone to tears, not just
You have to
Carey.
put that on YouTube.
But that was, that was one of those editorial choices where it was really emotional, actually, and it became a bit too much. You make that choice as to how far you take that. And we decided to pull back from it and do less with it because it was a lot.
So, Tom, staying on music, tell us how you wrote all these songs. How long did that take? How did you do that?
Well, some of the songs, I wrote a couple during the shoot, and I wrote 3 or 4 in the lead up to the shoot, but sort of bespoke for scenes or for moments in the film that I knew needed a certain feel, a certain sound. But a lot of them, or like half of them maybe, I'd had for a while, and I written years earlier, and 2 or 3 for the original short back in 2007. So there was a long process of sort of compiling the songs, but it's not something I've ever done for a living, writing. So I've written sort of comedy songs, but not like kind of songs like this. So I've never really gone out of my way to spend time writing songs, apart from when we were making the short, really. So I just had to kind of plug back into that and just try and generate songs I was happy with, and then happy enough to obviously send to Carey, knowing that her husband Marcus Mumford would listen to them and probably have an opinion on them. So it was quite an exposing old process, but I think like every part of this film, it all sort of felt quite organic, and we all trusted each other, and we just, to be fair to Griff and Tim, that they were just very trusting that I would just write these songs and they'd work for the film, and then Carey was super supportive, later on.
Not initially. I mean, when we made the short, we wrote the short, and then it was obviously going to be about a musician who needed to be a believable musician. So it was an interesting conversation, admittedly 18 years ago, where he's like, well, I'll write the songs. And I'm like, well, we need people around. So, well, maybe we'll get an actual singer, musician to do it. And then he's like, no, I'll do it. And then he did it, and it was it makes perfect sense, because not only is it really good, but you genuinely believe that this could be a musician who exists in the world. But yeah, we did have trust in him, but it is very interesting at the start to sort of go, it's not lack of trust, it's just, surely you're not able to do that. And then he did it really, really well. And then with the feature, he's got 17 years more experience and ability to make the rest of the songs. And so it's kind of, well, this one wasn't a question, it was a no-brainer. Obviously, you do the songs. But yeah, it was kind of an enormous part of the film, which is, testament to him that he can just play the part of a musician who you believe is a musician.
Yeah, the disbelief that you felt when he said, I'm going to do it, is what's kind of where my questions are coming from. Because if you're not a musician, I don't think you can conceptualize how someone could just sit down and write all that music. So it's sort of magic.
It took him 17 years, to be fair. That's what
Well,
we're waiting
also
for.
get to magic.
Just waiting for it.
On and off.
There's a scene in the film where I play tennis as well, and there was they wanted to get a double to make it a believable tennis player, but I did the tennis.
Yeah,
Those
we
aces
didn't
were
use
very
a
persuasive.
we didn't use a double in the end, famously. Just his arm, his very strong arm.
One thing that I noticed, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but because the film has such an interesting backstory, I have not seen, maybe I just overlooked it, but any mention of the short being the basis for the feature in the marketing materials that are out so far. Is that a choice that you guys made, or?
No, I don't think so. I think if you look for it, you might find it.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, it's on the internet.
The short itself is, right?
Yeah, the short's on the
yeah.
internet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just meant in the way that it's being sold. It doesn't seem like
it's interesting. I feel like we've been talking about it quite a lot because I think what's quite nice about the story with the short film is that obviously, just particularly people who want to make movies, and are sort of struggling to kind of like work out how to break through and make their first film. It's quite reassuring to know that it can take a long time, and that your short film is actually, if you make a short film, you're proud of it. It's a very good platform to use to make a feature. That actually, if you've made something that works with characters that work, then it's often a very good idea to stick with that and see it through to a feature.
Yeah, and I also think it's just part of that creative journey, isn't it? That that you're supposed to make the thing that you make in that moment. Like we wouldn't have made the film if we'd have continued the short and just gone straight to make this film. It wouldn't look like this film, because we've all grown and we've had this kind of, conceptually, I guess, if the film is about looking back to a time that you wanted to get back to, then we all spoke a lot about wanting to get back to that time because it felt like the thing we were most proud of, in spite of all having a very sort of, varied careers and still making things and still being, out there being creative, but it just felt like that. So you come back to it, the short is important because it's a place that we were trying to get to. Yeah.
Great. So I have one more question, and this is sort of going to be like a game show format. So if we had buzzers, if we had unlimited budget here at the Fast Company Grill, we would have buzzers up here that everybody can hit them as fast as possible.
We can make a buzzing
just
noise.
Say buzz, or you can just call it out.
Okay.
My question is this. If you had 500,000 euro to reassemble any band for a private concert for you, on a beach or in your house or wherever, who would it be? Bonus points if all of the members are still alive, but they don't have to be.
Well, do you have the Beatles here?
Do we have the Beatles? I've heard of the Beatles. Yes. Yeah.
I'll have the Beatles. I won't get the bonus points, but I'll take.
You get double deduction on the bonus points.
Oh, that's okay. But I'll take the Beatles.
Yeah. Any other answers?
I'll go travelling Wilburys. I think they'd be quite fun to reassemble.
That's a good one. Good one. Yeah, I love that.
Probably maybe Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Yes. The whole lot.
The whole lot. Carey, anyone?
East 17.
Ooh, deep cut. I like that. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
They're a big deal in the UK.
I'm going to say the replacements, minus one member. Thanks, everybody. This was a really, really fun panel.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
See the Ballad of Wallis Island. It is really, really fantastic. March 28th. Thanks to this group. Appreciate you very much.